Research in the North East and in the Liverpool area has found that fish and chips can have a lot of salt in them, sometimes more than the recommended total daily intake for adults in a single portion of fish and chips. Firstly, we did a lab study where we wanted to see if these shakers, the 5-hole shakers, deliver less salt than the 17-hole shakers in theory. So we asked a number of volunteers to shake the 5-hole shaker and the 17-hole shaker for exactly the same amount of time, and we measured how much salt came out. And not surprisingly, the 5-hole shakers really work in theory. So they delivered about a third of the salt of the 17-hole shakers. So then we went out and we visited 60 different fish and chip shops in 2 different towns in the North East, and we bought a standard portion of fish and chips from each takeaway. And when the server asked us if we wanted salt, we said yes, and we had a look to see what sort of shakers they were using. About half of the shops were using the 5-hole shaker and the rest were using the 17-hole shakers. So then we brought those portions of fish and chips back to the lab, and again we looked at how much salt was in them. And we did find that there was a difference, but this time it was much less clear. And there was 2 other things that seemed to really influence how much salt was in the food, and that was where the shops were located and how much they were charging for food. First of all, we've learned that the 5-hole shakers can make a difference, but we also found that even if the shops were using the 5-hole shaker, there was still a lot of salt in the fish and chips they were serving. So there are other things that they could do, perhaps changing the recipe of their batter. But what's really important is that half the shops were using these shakers already, which gives a really strong impression that these are a really easy thing for chip shops to integrate into their everyday practice.
The salt shaker was actually very well received in Gateshead. Gateshead's shops and their customers didn't have a problem with less salty food, and 1 or 2 shops have told us since that they're using 60% less salt than before. The likely benefit of that to regular takeaway users should be fairly dramatic.